The aim of this vlog is to explore cop culture and the racial tensions amongst the police, historically and contemporary. We will begin by analysing what is meant by the term cop culture. We will then briefly explore the history of the police to provide context. Following this will be exploration of social identity theory, furthermore analysis of the characteristics that contribute to cop culture. There will then be exploration around how cop culture creates an environment for racism in the police, delve into the history of racism and relevant case studies. Following this will be analysis of policies such as stop and search. To conclude, we will look at how the police are held to account. There must be exploration around the dynamics of policing before exploring cop culture. Jones et al. Stated that the police are the specialist state agencies tasked with crime and control, order maintenance and emergency response. Policing as a broader concept takes a multi-agency approach to maintain control and order. For example, the probation service comes under this term policing. According to Manning, cop culture is a set of accepted practices, principles and rules which are situationally applied. These beliefs can sometimes have discriminatory undertones such as racism. The main difference between cop culture and canteen culture is that cop culture is demonstrated in practice. This could lead to discrimination permeating through, whereas canteen culture is displayed in off-duty socialising. This serves a function for tension release. Reasoning behind the way in which canteen culture does not permeate through into practice varies. An example may be that an officer does not truly believe in what he's portraying, however feels it necessary to share prejudiced views as a way to fit in. However, it would be naive to suggest that these displayed prejudices do not indirectly stem into practice. As Loftus simplistically stated, language itself is a form of practice. To truly understand cop culture, we must delve into the deeply rooted history of the police. Robert Peel's revolutionary ideology surrounding the structure of the police set the foundations of the modern-day style of policing we have today. He established 9 well-founded principles which unified all police officers, furthermore established shared goals which fostered the onset of cop culture. This new structure was necessary to suffice the new and economic and social changes of the era. However, it did not come without its consequences. Rayner stated that there was a very high turnover in the first decade of the new police due to dismissals for drunkenness and rapid resignation rates from a demanding and disciplined job. We are now going to talk about social identity theory. The definition can be found on the screen next to me. When officers identify with each other through shared goals and the nature of the job being demanding, this creates an environment for high self-esteem, which is essential for a police officer to undertake their role efficiently. However, Henry suggests there is a problematic nature surrounding this. For example, it creates a viewpoint of us and them. This means that officers could distance themselves from the general public, and through this they could adopt prejudiced views. This stems into the ideology that the police are a subculture and that there are certain components embedded into this police subculture. In 1996, Skolnick identified key characteristics related to cop culture, the first being suspicion. Police officers' training is built on an aspect of suspicion. As they're taught to interrogate suspects, it becomes ingrained into their personalities to be suspicious. This, supplemented with embedded beliefs such as racism, can be problematic, as they can take advantage of policies such as stop and search more vigorously in certain communities. This is evident in statistics. According to the Home Office, the black community were 9.5 times more likely to be stopped and searched than the white community. The biggest difference in stop and search rates between different communities was in Dorset, where the black community was 17 times more likely to be stopped and searched. This corresponds into arrest rates. The black community are over 3 times more likely to be arrested than the white community. So the second component is social isolation or group solidarity. The demanding nature of the police restricts social relations outside of the organisation. This encourages enhanced solidarity. This prolonged interactions with colleagues reinforces shared beliefs and ideologies. Not allowing for other perspectives to be introduced or considered again potentially creates a toxic environment for stereotyping. So the third component is conservatism. Police officers tend to share the same moral and political stances. Their views take a conservative standpoint. The reasoning behind this may be due to the interactions they have with the troublesome working class. These physical interactions shape their internal philosophy. Research conducted by Coleman et al. Concluded that police recruits had more intolerance of issues such as migration and the death penalty than a control group. However, this research may be deemed outdated as it was conducted 37 years ago. Contemporary campaigns by the Policing Academy have encouraged a more diverse recruitment of police officers, which may contribute to a diversity of personalities within the police. So in 2010, Rayner developed further characteristics relating to cop culture, the first being a sense of mission. This sense of mission stems from the uncertain nature of the job. As a result, there is a high degree of loyalty rooted in the police culture, creating an environment whereby challenging the ideologies are almost impossible. This becomes problematic, as if ideas are not challenged, this can manifest into generalised beliefs and will become apparent in policing strategies, such as racism in the police. So, as briefly discussed earlier, alcohol consumption is a symbolic nature of cop culture. Going down the pub with your colleagues is considered the norm. This builds strong bonds. Another dominant feature of the police is heterosexual relationships. This stems into the ideology that the typical police officer is male, white and working class. However, this image is becoming distorted as there's an urge for a diversity of new recruits, enabling new perspectives into the police. This may cause the breakdown of cop culture. So traditionally, the police have been considered to have negative views towards ethnic minorities. It has been a constant struggle throughout the recent decades to maintain the legitimacy of the police whilst having a strong racial prejudice embedded into the core of the police. This undermines the fundamental principle, which is justice. There have been many cases that validate this ideology. Even though there is a strict policy around the use of racist terminology, racism still permeates through. For example, there's been a case whereby a police officer used racist language in public. Consequently, a complaint was made. It is a sackable offence. However, the Police Federation hired the best lawyers and the outcome of the offence was that the officer was fined for 13 days' wages. There's a huge conflict between police reform and the embedded police culture. The Brixton riots took place in 1981. The reason in which the riots broke out was because the community felt targeted. Racial tensions were growing. Police brutality and harassment became the norm for young black males. April 1981, police announced that the crime in Brixton had reached a tipping point, muggings increasing 4 times faster than in any other borough. However, there was another crisis that supplemented this one: employment of the black community. Almost 1 in 2 people in the black community were not employed. The reason for crime may have been the structural issues surrounding the economic deprivation in Brixton and the lack of opportunity for young black males to get the necessities they needed through legitimate means. This relates to strain theory. However, the police did not recognise this and only saw the black community as the enemy. The pivotal point when frustration turned into anger was when the police conducted an undercover operation, Swamp 81. This involved the stop and search of every black male in Brixton area. The beneficial aspects surrounding the riots were the Scarman report. The report established that racism was present in the police. However, it was only limited to a few rotten apples. In the year 1993, 18-year-old Stephen Lawrence was brutally killed in an unprovoked attack. It took 19 years to get a conviction. David Norris and Gary Dobson were eventually convicted of his murder. The reason behind this prolonged investigation has racist undertones. The Maxson report, published in February 1999, accuses the Metropolitan Police of institutionalised racism and makes 70 recommendations, many aimed at improving police attitudes towards racism. The theory which underpins this report is the rotten orchids theory, stating that the problem aroused from the systematic failure within the organisation. It is evident that Rayner's established characteristics of cop culture, such as racial prejudices, permeate through not only in theory but also in practice. ASC221 of Greater Manchester Police by day, journalist investigating racism by night. You can certainly say he was living a double life. The journalist explains that the educational programmes surrounding racism have failed to eradicate the problem, as many officers still have entrenched beliefs of racism. This may indicate that there is a need for huge structural change within the police. It is evident that racist views still lie at the core of the establishment, as many of the officers projecting these extreme racist views are new recruits. Even though there is an urge to reform cop culture through diversity of new recruits, it is not evident in statistics. 6.9% of police officers from England and Wales come from an ethnic minority backgrounds, whereas the rest are of white ethnicity. The figure has increased since 2007, when it was 4%. However, it is evident that there needs to be a larger representation of ethnic minorities to enable the breakdown of racist views within the police. There are many tensions surrounding the stop and search policy with regards to racism. It is apparent when analysing this chart coined by Palmer that white individuals have been stopped 52.6 more times than black ethnic groups. However, research conducted by Saunders et al. Brings attention to the disproportionate stop and searches conducted on the black community. However, this may be seen as justifiable as knife crime is on the rise. There has been a significant increase in the recent years, as demonstrated from the graph. Furthermore, statistics show that 38% of knife possession offenders under the age of 25 were from black and ethnic minority communities. However, Bennett argues that more stop and search will not help in this fight against knife crime. The effectiveness of stop and search is undermined because it does not address the fundamental factors behind the rise in crime. It creates more problems as young black males feel like they're being targeted. The structural issues need to be addressed. For example, educating young black males how to obtain wants and needs through legitimate means. There are certain measures in place to hold the police to account. Many of these work in the fight against racism. For example, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. It provides codes of practices with regards to exercising powers. It is a mechanism that enables accountability. Body-worn cameras are another preventative measure against racism. As if an officer has been recorded, they are less likely to act in a racist manner, as racism is strictly against their code of practice. This may not eradicate the internal beliefs, however, it limits discrimination in practice. To conclude, it is evident that certain characteristics of cop culture permeate through in practice. The detrimental effects are established in the Scarman Report and the Maxon Report. However, the police as an organisation are taking measures to combat racism, such as implementing body-worn cameras and the establishment of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. Furthermore, there are ongoing efforts to diversify the police by recruiting officers from a diverse background.